With the flowers blooming and the NFL draft quickly approaching, it is only right to give new perspectives on the lineups for the draft. Compared to last mock draft, so many factors have changed placement trajectories of lots of players. Welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. I'm Cora Rodriguez alongside Nolan, Collery, and Jenna Wissman. So let's just hop right into it. So Jenna, let's start with your draft first.
All right, so first up at number 1, this isn't too much of a surprise. It's Caleb Williams. Everyone knows he's probably going to go number 1. I wasn't a huge fan of what happened at the Combine, but I do think he overall had a pretty good collegiate career. Wasn't the best last season, but it's okay. The Bears traded Justin Fields. It makes sense. Caleb Williams at number 1. So going to number 2, I've got Jaden Daniels from LSU. I'm a huge LSU person. I like players that come out of there. I think they're well coached. I think he's a great dual threat quarterback. He reminds me a lot like Lamar Jackson. Washington needs a QB. Also, the offensive coordinator I read said that he basically works with a lot of successful quarterbacks like Jaden Daniels. So it makes sense. I could see him fitting right in there. Moving on to 3, Drake May to the Patriots. I think that he's a really big guy. He can take hits, and I think he's just going to do really well in New England. They've got a new coach. They need to rebuild. I think it makes most sense to put him there. Moving on to 4, I've got Marvin Harrison Jr. from Ohio State. There's been a lot of rumors about him in Arizona because a former teammate of his that's in Arizona right now basically leaked that Marvin Harrison wants to go there. Based on the top 3 being quarterbacks, in my opinion, I think this just makes the most sense for where he's going to land. So yeah, I see him in Arizona. 5 is where things get a little tricky because this is where a lot of people think the Vikings will trade up because some people think the Chargers don't need a top guy. So if they trade back, people think that might be better for them. Personally, I think they should keep it. Malik Neighbors, I think he really did well at the Combine. Keenan Allen's gone. I think you got to replace him. And I think he'd just go well with Justin Herbert. So I could see him going at 5. I think it's realistic. Why give that up? And that's when things get interesting at 6 because J.J. McCarthy, I have him going to the Giants. This might get a little bit of hate, but J.J. McCarthy is all-around do-it-all quarterback, I think. Well-coached. He's also really young. He has time. He's got time to prove himself. So I see him going here. New York is also rebuilding. I think he'd fit great in New York, honestly. So that's where I see J.J. going. Now I'm going to move over to Bo Nix, 13. Bo Nix is projected to go in the 2nd round right now. I think that this is a little bit of a reach. I do. But I honestly think that it's smart. I think the Raiders need a quarterback, and they need it right now. People might be worried about Bo Nix's age. That's fine, but he did have 5 years of starting, and so he's got experience, and I think he can really prove himself at the Raiders. So I think give him that shot. I think it'll work out. All right, so if we move on to the next slide, I have some picks for going later in the 1st round. 21 and 22, we got the Dolphins, Nate Wiggins. I think that's possible, but I could also see the Eagles switching there. So I could see Chop Robinson going to Miami. I think it just depends on what Miami's going to do. The Eagles have a history of drafting guys that do really well at the Combine. Chop Robinson did really well at the Combine. Also, Eagles aren't afraid to draft defensive linemen. They've shown it. They've proven it. It doesn't matter. The Eagles do have Hassan Reddick, but I think that they wouldn't be afraid to grab Chop Robinson. But I also think the Eagles could use a lockdown corner. So I could see this going either way with 21 or 22. I also want to point out 23. I have Michael Penix Jr. going to Minnesota. Minnesota wants that quarterback. Some people say they want J.J. McCarthy. I think, honestly, they'd be fine with Michael Penix Jr. from Washington. I think that's good. I think that's safe. And I think he could learn there. So, yeah, that's what I've got for my 1st round of the draft picks.
I mean, I completely agree, especially with the J.J. McCarthy pick, just because the New York Giants really, really need a just a quarterback. I mean, they were like last season, they were just really tossing and turning through quarterbacks, and they really need somebody that's strong like JJ McCarthy, especially just how good he is. But let's go over to Nolan's draft.
All right, so we're going to start at the top. It's the same way. Caleb Williams is a once-in-a-generation prospect. His ability to move outside of structure to extend plays, incredible. Very similar to Justin Fields, but I don't think he'll hang on to the ball quite as long. Number 2, I have Drake May, and I'm here to argue that Drake May is closer to Caleb Williams than he is Jaden Daniels. Drake May is a fantastic quarterback. He's got a cannon for an arm. He's a big guy who can run, but the biggest thing, he is able to work in a structured offense. Cliff Kingsbury is going to be over there in Washington cooking something up on offense, and I know that Drake May is going to like using that. Jaden Daniels, I have going number 3. I think those 3 are fairly strong locks to be the first 3 off the board. And then Marvin Harrison, once again, what a fantastic receiver prospect. There is nothing he cannot do with the ball in his hands. So we talked about JJ McCarthy. I do think the Vikings make the power play. They just got a second first-round draft pick, and I think this is the easy place to do it. So they're going to make a trade-up with the Chargers to go out and get their quarterback of the future. Number 6, Malik Neighbors, another fantastic receiver prospect. Like you said, LSU pumps out great players, great wide receivers especially. Moving down the board a little bit, Rome Odunze is going to find his home in Chicago, and you get Keenan Allen. But why not give a rookie quarterback more toys to play with? And Rome is a big catch threat. He's going to feel good. And Jets fans, you are counting your lucky stars because the physical freak from Penn State, Olu Fashanu, falls right into your lap at number 10. Number 11, Brock Bowers is what the Chargers are going to use. I have a hunch that that's what the Chargers want to happen. They want to get some good targets for Justin Herbert. He is too talented to rot away throwing the ball to plumbers. So it's good that they're going to have some playmakers. Quinyon Mitchell, let me just ramble about this guy real quick. If he played for any other team in any bigger conference, he would be the clear-cut number 1 cornerback in this draft. It's just that he plays for Toledo. I love Maction football. Most people don't. I'm telling you, this guy is a stud. He's going to be ready to go from day 1. So moving on to the back half of this draft, going number 17 to the Jaguars is going to be Cooper DeJean from Iowa. Fantastic player, but the most versatile secondary guy in this draft, in my opinion. He can play the slot, he can play the nickel, but most importantly, he can also transition to safety very easily. So taking this as a bit of an insurance pick if you're not sure where you want to play him at. Laiatu Latu going to stay in LA. Obviously, Aaron Donald, one of the best to ever do it, just retired. Fill up some gaps right on that defensive line. Like you mentioned, the Eagles could use another player in that secondary. I think Nate Wiggins slots in pretty good there. So the Chargers are going to use their next first-round pick, and they're going to take Brian Thomas Jr., who, if he was not behind Malik Neighbors, could easily be one of those top 3 guys that we're talking about in this class. He is a freak with the ball in his hands. He makes yards after catch play happen, unlike a lot of other players you're going to see. Chop Robinson, the Penn State product, I have fallen to Arizona. Arizona's always needed help in the trenches. It seems like every year they're rotating guys in and out. Great place to pick someone up. Let's talk about number 31 because I also have Bo Nix going to the Raiders, but in a bit of a different spot. The 49ers are a very, very complete roster. They don't need much help, so they're going to trade out for some future first-round picks in coming years, and the Raiders are going to go after their guy. Now, they did sign Gardner Minshew, so they have that option in the near future. But the thing is, Bo Nix, I get that he's old, but he's gotten better every single year in college. We've seen he has the ability to develop from Auburn to Oregon. And the big question becomes, well, what about Michael Penix? Here's the thing. Michael Penix is a very system-dependent quarterback. He had a very good offensive line in college, and he had very good receivers in college. I worry that if he falls to a team that doesn't have the structure around him immediately, it's going to set him up for failure, especially as a guy who has 2 ACL tears in his college career in the same knee. And last but not least, Keon Coleman. Last year, I mocked the Chiefs getting Jalen Hyatt, and I said that freaking terrifies me. Keon Coleman freaking terrifies me even more. I'm so sick of watching the Chiefs have these guys that they can always throw the ball down to. But having Travis Kelce, having Rashee Rice, already making the big move to get your speedster and picking up Hollywood Brown. And now you have a guy who can just make a play on the ball. Those hands are glue. It's terrifying. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope I'm wrong there. But I think that's what we're looking at this year.
I completely agree with the Chiefs pick just because that is very scary. But there's only 1 month away. Yes, only 31 days left from this recording till the NFL draft. It would be interesting to see how these mock drafts change within this limited time. But for now, check out our last mock draft to see what predictions were and the future drafts Penn State Sports site makes in the future. For Nolan, Collery, and Jenna Wissman, I'm Cora Rodriguez, signing out.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning into this edition of Penn State Sports Night.
For more content like this, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, give us a like, and follow our socials down below.
And as always, we are
Penn State Sports Night.